Hey, writers. During the previous writing session, I heard you all telling each other story ideas, and they all sounded like they could have been written into real life library books that would be sitting on our bookshelves right now. This morning, as you started morning meeting, I'm sure that some ideas might have popped in your head that would make wonderful stories that you could write. Last night I was home and a story idea sparked into my head. I was sitting and watching a squirrel out in the front yard crack and eat a nut. That squirrel was sitting inside a place where two branches formed a V. I'm imagining in my head how it sat right in the bottom of the V, all cozy and safe. As I watched the squirrel travel all over the tree until it found just that one special protected spot, and I realized I could write a story about a kid watching a squirrel. A kid maybe who needs to find a cozy spot himself, a safe spot like the space at the bottom of that V. Maybe I could have a story about a girl watching a squirrel in search for her own nook, and she could find her own similarly safe spot. Did you notice my story idea? It was something that started out tiny and ordinary. The work that that story would create reminds me a lot of what E.B. White would do for Charlotte's Web. Today, I want to teach you that writers collect ideas for stories not only by finding bits of life or entries that could grow into these entirely large stories, but by paying attention to the stories they wish existed. Use your imagination. Think of a story that you would wish existed in life today, a realistic fiction story. Sometimes you may get ideas for these stories by thinking, how would someone like me see ourselves in books? Maybe it's a book about a fourth grader. Maybe it's a book about a fourth grader who is distance learning. Maybe it's a story about a fourth grader who had a summer with their grandparents that turned out to be the best summer ever. Many times, when any of us look through library books at the library, we're looking to find ourselves in stories. I may find myself wanting a book about a kid like me. When I was a kid, I was afraid of the dark. Maybe I might find a book about a kid who was the last one to be picked at sports, or a kid who's not really good at any video games, or a kid whose mother said every night before bed, you need to tip your head down and brush your hair 100 strokes. Maybe one of your searches in the library shelves for a kid who lives with his grandma who likes to draw cartoon cats and dreams of having a cartoon strip in a Sunday paper one day or online, or a famous YouTuber who started off by recording things on a camcorder with his parents. That's that old invention we used to have back in the day where we would film all of you before we had cell phones. I want to show you how this story idea and strategy works. I'm going to show you a story that I created that was inspiration from me as a child. So I wanted to think of a story that I wish existed in the world, a story that I could relate to. The next video is going to show you my writer's notebook, and we're going to read about how I made my characters relatable, which means I described how they look. I painted the picture in my reader's head of what are these characters doing and why. Take a look at my writer's notebook. I hope you enjoy.